Okay, the fourth and final tense we're going to look at. The best to last. Not best as in enjoyable, but best as in trickiest. The Modh Coinníollach, the conditional tense. Good news is you very rarely have to use it. But I said if I'm going to teach you the tenses, I might as well teach you what this tense is all about. The Modh Coinníollach, what is it? It's the conditional tense. There's a condition attached to the sentence. What would you do if you won the lotto? I'd stay in after school and teach free grammar courses for the rest of my life. Or Coinníollach Ulvor le linsnava os Corantí, or I'd buy a big house with a swimming pool in front of the house. Who knows? Maybe either or. But there's a condition attached. What would you do if you were the Taoiseach of the country? There's a condition attached. And this is something that has to go into your essays, an example or two. And it also has to come into your Irish oral. In the Irish oral, to get a H1, a student has to be able to bring in the Modh Coinníollach. So where would you do that? If I was the principal in the school, that rowing the Rilika, I would change the rules. Okay, what would you do? Shanowing or churhing, that rowing, whatever it may be. I would change, I would buy, I would do, I would change things around. So what this tense basically means is that it's not definitely going to happen. There's a condition attached to it. Why do students not like the Modh Coinníollach? One, it sounds very strange when you're saying it. And two, it's tricky enough to formulate. So let's have a look what I'm going to do here. Page 2. A bit of information. This is commonly referred to as the conditional tense. Each statement has a condition attached to it. We've said that already. And there's two examples. If I won the lotto, I would buy a house. Dá muing an chronic ar náisiúnta, cheanóing teach nua. An céad réimniú still deals with one syllable verbs. That is one thing that we do have in common. That don't steal anything, that still deals with one syllable verbs. And what's the rule when we're always in a céad réimniú? We just add endings onto the verb. And that is still the case. The Modh Coinníollach's tricky for one reason and one reason only. Two reasons maybe. The first reason is you need to change something at the start and at the end of the verb. So listen to that. Past tense, you change the start of the verb. Present and the future tense, you change the end of the verb. The Modh Coinníollach, fuck it, we'll just change everything at both ends. So that's why the Modh Coinníollach's tricky. And the second reason, I was going to lie to you, but I said I might as well tell you the truth. The second reason it's a bit tricky is there's an ending for me. One ending, set. Two, there's a different ending. So there's two different endings. There's one for she and she. There's three endings. There's one for we. Shiv is the same for she and she. There's also one for she. There's 5 different endings plus the brí ser. So there's 6 different endings here. So there's loads of random endings. The good news is, how often are you going to be talking about conditions in a sentence where I would if I could, like if it was my opinion I would do this? Very, very rarely. So for you guys, the only ones you should really, really be worried about is the version for I and the version for the brí ser, the free verb, for when you're writing essays, and the I version for when you're in your Irish oral. So although there's other ones here, you don't have to be too worried about them, to be honest. If you're struggling with this tense and it's something that you're just clinging on with nails here at the minute going, God, I'm just about to knock this off, it's getting too much. Just remember, you only get good at the I, may version, and the brí ser, the free verb version. Let's go through it anyway. On céad réimniú, what do we do here? We start with the spelling of the verb's root. What's that? The basic format of the verb. So like cur, glán. Use the rules of the Aimsir Caite at the start of the verbs. Hold on. But this is the Modh Coinníollach. It is, don't worry. You're still in the right video. You haven't tripped. Modh Coinníollach. So let's say cur. You put it into the past tense. How would you put cur into the past tense? When you add a shevu because it starts in a consonant. So you go C-H-U-I-R. You put it into the past tense and then you use the ending of the Modh Coinníollach. And in this case, I know the ending is F-I-N-N. Pronunciation-wise, it's not pronounced with an F. It's pronounced like a hing. Churhing. It's like the F disappears and you're going to go into a hing noise there at the end. You add the appropriate ending. Check below. And in this tense, we have 6 different endings. We use an and an uru for a question, and ni plus a shevu for a negative statement. So let's have a look here at the examples that I've done on page 3. So I did cur there. Look at the different endings. There's an ending for may, to, she, So let's look at all the different endings here. Okay, Draymond, I have an ending for may I need to put in here. I have one for to. She, she, shiv stays the same. 3 endings. I have one from which. Shiv I've covered. She'd. And the breaker's here. So let's see, what endings do I have? So for may, when it's Latin, I have F-A-I-N-N, like that. And I don't put in may afterwards. I don't do that. The may disappears. Vulhing, I know you mean you. That ending lets me know. So when I put a little X like this, it means you don't put in the may after it. This ending, fa, you don't put in the to. The to disappears. She, she, shiv, like that. And you do put in the she, she, and the shiv. Famish, here, you don't put in the midge. Fadish, you don't put in the sheet. And the last one is, what am I doing here? Fi. Like that. F-A-I-N-N, F-A-F-A-D-A, F-A-D-H, F-A-I-M-A-S, F-A-I-D-I for the S, F-A-I for the. To make them slender, we have to add in an E or an I somewhere. So this case, it goes to F-I-N-N. This side, F-E-A for the. This side, F-E-A-D-H. This side, F-I-M-I-S. This one, F-I for the. There's a lot of endings there, but what did I tell you? I did have a lovely blue marker at one stage. Gotcha. The ones I want you to be really good at are this one and this one. So don't you worry that if you're saying, how am I going to remember all of this? When are you going to say, if he could do that, he would do that? You're never going to make a sentence like that in Irish. You may say, I would recommend, I would do, or I would change. That's fine. I would put more emphasis on churning, or you may use the Brigher Sayre version of it. So don't be too stressed about these in the middle. If you want to go on and study Irish and be an Irish teacher, be an Irish lecturer, then you need to know the ones in the middle. But for now, this and this are the only 2 important ones. Look at the examples, and on the next page we're going to do a verb together. Let's do, you've put in your endings on page 4, and I'm going to do glock, ri, and eisht. I'm going to put them up on the whiteboard here. Fill in your endings, and I'm going to prep the board. Okay, let's put all these into the Modh Coinníollach. Again, pause the video if you need a little bit more time, there's no problem. So glock. I would accept it if I had to. There's the H to put it in the past tense at the start. It's 1 syllable, so just add in my endings. You would accept it if I told you. Glocka. You would accept it. Again, no may, no to. Glochach. We would accept it if needs be. Gloch for me. Glochach shiv. They would accept it if needs be. Gloch fadish. Gloch fi. Gloch fi lesh. It would be accepted. So again, the only time she and she and shiv, the endings are, the rest of them, you should be able to understand them. That's how you'll get asked a question. Called the yenha, called the glochfa, called the ahroha. And then you answer back with this. And so in the Irish oral, you get the question like this, the you version of it too, and you answer back with that. Let's do riff next. Let's do it in black, just to make it a bit easier to stand out. So, riffing. We would run. Would you run? Riha. Again, because it's starts or ends with an I, it's quail. I have to use the different endings. Why am I not changing anything at the start of ri? Because the letters L, N and O in Irish can never be changed at the start. You cannot put a shevu or an uru in ever, so therefore we cannot change. So with this, it's just going to be ri and the different endings. Just like that. Okay? I want you guys to try to do the last one. It's quail. It starts on a vowel. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to try to do the last one. I've done the first two, so see if you can have a go at doing the last one now. And I will stick the answer up on the board then. But just so you can have a go at doing one on your own. Again, put it into the past tense at the start. So eisht goes to deisht. And then you're going to be using these endings here because it's slender, it's quail. So have a go at doing that. Then I'll stick the right answer up on the board. Just like that. Deishting, deishta, deishtach, she or she, deisht famish, we would listen if there was music. Deishtach shiv, deish fadish, deisht fi. Okay? Again, the only two I'm really worried about is may and the briher ser. So there's 3 examples done. And you have, for the question there, I left out the question version of it, so I'll apologise, I'll do them now. So, on for a question. Who is it? It's 2. So will you accept it on Nglachfi? Nglachka. So look for the question. I had to take out the shevu because you can't have a shevu and an uru on the same word. So what happens here is the uru takes control because it's on plus an uru. For a negative, I wouldn't accept it. Nglachking. For here, would you run? On riha, ni rihin, I wouldn't run. And then here, after an on, you can never have an uru on a vowel, so on eishvi. I wouldn't listen. So on Eishta, would you listen to that person? No, ni Eishtanesh, I wouldn't listen to him. I've no interest in what he's got to say. Okay? There's your 1 syllable ones. Then we're going to move on to the 2 syllable ones on page 6. So turn to page 6 and we'll have a little look at them there. Okay? Okay, so as you can see, I've cleared that stuff off the whiteboard and we're going to look at Andara. Change that there. Andara reimne, the second conjunction. We're dealing with 2 syllable verbs here. So what do we do? It's kind of similar to the past tense that you're getting the root of the verb, you're putting it at the past tense at the start, but you're adding in a Coinníollach ending. So there's 3 things to do. First thing, take something away from the verb. Get your stem. Second thing, put it into the past tense like you would at the start. Third thing, put in a Coinníollach ending. So let's look at the examples that I gave you here on page 6. Start with the spelling of the verb's root Use the rules of the Irish Catch at the start. Add the appropriate ending. In this tense, we have 6 different endings. On plus an urdu for a question. Ni plus a negative for a statement. So it's fairly similar. Look at the examples below. Bollig may, I collected. Following, BH for past tense. AIL, my new ending is EOINN. Immer, cuddle, you can see them there. I know now you know how to conjugate 2-syllable verbs, so I'm not worried about that. Let's have a look, please, at the examples on the next page. On page 7. I've put a verb in that is Lahan and quail, and I've also put one that starts on a vowel as well, because for this, you've got to put the apostrophe in at the start of the vowels. Have a look at your endings. If you would put the endings in for me on page 8, I might stick them up here for you first, actually, it might make more sense. So I need to have an ending for May, don't I? I need to have an ending for 2. I need to have an ending for Shay, She, Shiv, for Widge, for Shead, God, they're never ending, and the Brigher Ser. Don't mind them two for a minute, it's fine. Lahan and quail, get a different colour marker. So let's go down. Again, you can fill these in for me on page 8. Page 8, there's a spot there to fill them in. So let's have a look. Oh, sorry, I didn't need that there. That's all included there. Okay, so get them filled in on your endings grid on page 8. The only one to be wary for is I just put the shiv there. I should have probably put it down there in which shiv sheet, but it's the same one, so I just saved me writing it out again. More space. So there's your endings. And I'm going to do Bollig and Inish on the board with you, and then I'm going to leave you to do Fisrig and Inish by yourself, okay? So again, I'll leave them up for a couple of seconds. At this stage, pause the video if you still want time to take them down, but they're all on the previous page anyway, you can figure them out. So pause the video if you want. I'm going to do an example. So, what are we doing here? We're putting these in the Brigher Ser. So we're putting them into the past tense with a Modh Coinníollach ending, put it into the past tense with a Modh Coinníollach ending. So let me just do the May version for both here. Maybe I should do Fisrig, because Fisrig is going to be Lahan actually. So I'll give you a Lahan and a quail version. That would make more sense to me. I'll do Fisrig instead. So get me the root of the verb. When you take off the AIGH, I'm left with FIOSR. But to put it into the past tense, I need to add something else in. Should have kept my eraser closer. So what am I going to do here to put it into the past tense? I need a D apostrophe and an FH. So it's D apostrophe FH IOSR. What's the Modh Coinníollach ending here? O for the INN. This rowing, I would investigate if they gave me the opportunity. First one up here, Inish, put it into the past tense, D apostrophe, take off the I, INS. Din showing on scale D da merk scale agum. I'd tell her the story if I had a story. Again, the whole way down. So that's May 2, Shay, She, Mwid, Shiv, and Sheed. Next I've got to do a question and a negative, and then I'll do the Brigher Ser. So I'll do this side first. So again, may two, she, muid, shiv and she. Again, rules of the past tense, put the D apostrophe at the start, drop the I to conjugate a two-syllable verb. It's still lan, and they're the appropriate endings. I just need to check here. So it's a question. I'll put the question in black. I'll put the negative in red just to make it maybe easier to stand out. For a question, what did I say? It was on plus an uru. So what's the uru for an F? BH. On vers roha. I wouldn't investigate. Ni plus a sheva. Ni is rowing, I wouldn't investigate. Again, you are never, ever going to have to ask a question in the Modh Coinníollach. If you want to do it in your essay, you can prep one, so don't worry. This is what confuses students a lot, that it goes from a D apostrophe FH to a BHF. The question is hard in the Modh Coinníollach because the question format changes the start of what it is for every single other one. But don't worry, the only ones I want you to be good at, remember, may and the Brigher Ser, which we'll do in a second. Finally, I need my blue marker to put the Brigher Ser ones in. This Rofi would be investigated if there was something to investigate. Then Shofi, it would be said if there was anything to say. So that's your two examples there. And again, the only two I want you to be good at are these two here. The main thing is with the Modh Coinníollach that I don't need you to be perfect at it, but I need you to remember it's the rules of the past tense at the start and it's the Modh Coinníollach ending at the end. The question will freak people out because it changes a lot and it makes it awkward. Forget the question one. So that's why I put them in red and black. Just erase them from your mind. This and this every time. They're the only two you'll ever have to use. The examiner in the oral will ask you the question like that, and you'll answer with this. Okay? That is the Modh Coinníollach there. And what I've done is I've put in some examples on page 10 and 11. And you've got the answers there on 12 and on 13. And look, I put all the irregular verbs. I did actually every single one of them out for you there, as you can see on 14 and 15. They're juxt? That's a new word for me. They're just so awkward that I just said I'd type them all out. So they're there for you. You'll very rarely use all of these, but I said if I was going to do the tenses, I'd do all four and I'd do them properly. That's how you use the Modh Coinníollach. It's a conditional tense. I would if I could. What would you do if you won the lotto? Again, and it's the rules of the past tense at the start with the Modh Coinníollach endings, the new Modh Coinníollach endings. Good news is you will rarely have to use it, and the only two you need to focus on is may and the Brigher Ser, the free verb. Again, there's more examples there. Do the examples yourselves. Take your time with them. All the answers are on the next page. So 10 and 11, I would do them now. Answers are on 12 and 13. You can do that in your own time. The last thing I did for you before letting you go is I did up this workbook. This is something I wasn't even planning on doing, but I said I'd do it anyway for you. And what it is it's a 2-week revision thing. Should have had a better word for thing prepared, but I didn't. So it's a thing right now. Here's my thing. So what I've done is it's a 2-week worksheet. It's called An Leabhar Oibre, a workbook. And what I've done is the first page of the workbook, there's random verbs like fog, do and ol. Then I've got a couple of 2 syllables, afrig and immer, ri, ciannig, uskal. And what I've done is, if you've probably downloaded it by now, you just put the verb in the past tense there, in the present tense here, in the future tense there, and I've got a Modh Coinníollach box there if you want. If the Modh Coinníollach is using it, just scribble the Modh Coinníollach box out. That's your warm-up. How do you know if your warm-up's right or not? Well, you go back to the video that I showed you on Chonglin, and to be honest, hopefully you're getting them right. And then on page 3, on page 4 as well, this is what I give to my own students. My own students get this as tests in class. They get them every couple of weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks, and they do these at the start of class. The first one takes about 20 minutes. After a couple of weeks, it takes them 5 minutes. And what they do is they look at these. Page 3. And it says, Ol me te gach la. Gach means every day. So that means you're in the present tense. So you change ol to the may version in the present tense. It's olam, o for the L-A-I-M. Curme shielta gach I plant seeds every day. So curum, C-U-I-R-I-M. It's a mix between past, present and future. I didn't put any Coinníollach in because they're not as useful. It's just past, present and future. It's 30 sentences, all mixed together in the 3 different tenses. It's up to you to put the verb in the right tense. Don't rewrite the whole sentence. Just rewrite the verb and the person who's talking. Again, there's 30 of them to do. You do that without any help from your notes. You want the answers for them, you go to page 6 and page 7. I've got all the answers put in there for you. And I've done 2 weeks worth of that. So don't do all that in one night. So what you do is you open up whatever night you're deciding to study. You do page 2 as a warm-up. You use notes if you need to. You check back, check they're right. That might take 10 minutes. You're happy, you've got warmed up. You're ready to go. You do a test on page 3 and page 4. And page 5. Page 5 is just the present tense. That's all. Just the An Leabhar. It's all the verbs you use when you're discussing poetry, discussing prose, discussing stuff in essays, to see, to illustrate, to show, to understand, to give, to get, to put, to feel and to learn. And you put them in the English, the Modh version and the Bríthe Séir version. And you've got all your answers then on the next page, page 6 and page 7. That should take you about 20 minutes in total, maybe to do and correct. Maybe a little, or if it takes you longer on the right, who cares, you're doing them right. Then you go to page 8 and week 2 weeks after this is finished, it's the exact same layout again, but with different verbs, with different examples, and again, all the answers are there for you. It's basically a worksheet so that after you finish this, you're not going, okay, that was great, and you don't do anything. If you don't do anything now for 2 or 3 weeks, you'll lose it like that. It'll go, it'll slip away, it'll become rusty. So the idea is here you've got a week of revision, then you've got another week of revision, and then you'll know it or you won't. Or better off, you'll know what bits you do know, and 1 or 2 bits are causing you problems. Is that okay? Guys, that's the 4 tenses. I really hope that you have a much better understanding of them now. I hope that I've picked out a couple of the weird things for you, like the I'm sure Catcha Bríthe Séir, you don't change at the start, or the Coinníollach, you change at the start and you put your endings at the end. So I really hope that the tenses are a bit clearer for you. I'm not saying you're going to be an absolute expert on it straight away, but do your revision booklet, the An Leabhar Oibre, for 2 weeks in a row. See how you get on. And I really hope that helps you. I really hope that your basics now are up to scratch, and that when you're going to write essays and you're going to write answers, you know that you're really, really confident in your verbs, that you're not worrying about, am I using the right verb, am I in the right tense? No, you're confident in your verbs. You know what verbs you want to use, and all you're worried about is the content that you're providing for the teacher. Is your information good now? It's not your Irish, not your grammar letting you down. Maybe you just didn't understand the question, or better yet, you are understanding it, and you're not being docked because your grammar isn't up to scratch. Alright? I hope you found it useful. If you did, you never know, I might see you again in Grind or something like that. If not, I wish you the very best of luck for the year, and we may cross paths again. Thanks.